It seems there's a kind of stigma attached with seascape photography, that it's easy photography. Good morning guys, today I'm at Cresswell in Northumberland and I'm here for a very specific reason, and that is to buy Seascape. Now it's probably not what you're thinking for a landscape photography vlog, but I thought while I'm here, let's get some shots in the bag. Now I knew it was going to be a grey, miserable morning. I checked the tide, I knew the tide wasn't right for the time I was coming here for the shots I wanted to get. You see, one of the main focuses on the beach at Cresswell are the big sea defence blocks. Now I believe these are tank blockers, and these were used in World War II as a defence to block tanks from getting up on the shore should we ever be invaded. Now these are strewn all the way up Cresswell and up into Druidge Bay and beyond. You can see them all along the Northumberland coast, and they make excellent subjects. Now let me take you through my thought process. Keeping in mind that the weather was bad and that the tide wasn't right, I had to think outside the box and think, what sort of images could I get? What can I shoot down here which will be interesting and I might actually want to keep? And it got me thinking about another photographer who I actually admire a lot for his photography. Now, I know this sounds strange, but a lot of vloggers, in fact most vloggers, I watch and I think they're absolutely fantastic photographers, but they've also got that entertainment about them. They've got something I want to watch, and that's probably more the reason I watch them. I think if I watched a vlog and it was 100% stunning images, but the video wasn't that great, I probably wouldn't go back and watch them as often. So this gentleman only shoots in black and white, and when I saw his images I just thought, oh, absolutely fantastic. I was blown away by them, and he really has inspired my black and white work, and it also inspired the purchase of a lens. Now you may remember on one of my earlier videos I did It's Not About the Gear, and I shot using a £1 lens. Now I got it for £1, I think you can get them on Amazon for £9, and that lens is the Holga. This is the Nikon version of the Holga lens, and as I say, it's a cheap plastic lens. It's based on the old Holga cameras. You're not going to get an amazingly sharp, amazingly crisp shot with it, but it offers a kind of romance to your photography. And it reminds me of the old film cameras with the heavy vignetting around, and you can see the sensor dust and the grain, and everything just kind of brings the image into this sort of work of art rather than a snapshot, or how we sort of edit our art to make fantastic landscape images. So yes, this gentleman is called Stephen McNally, and I would certainly recommend checking them out. I'll put a link to his vlog below, and also if he's got, I'll ask him about his social media, which one he prefers, and I'll put that below, because he really is a photographer that you want to look at the images more than the vlogs. His photography is fantastic. Now, I believe he's heavily influenced by Michael Kenner, but I discovered Stephen before I even heard of Michael Kenner, so he's kind of the pioneer for me of this type of black and white imagery. So yeah, go and check out his images. And as I say, I'm solely shooting on this Holga lens, and the reason is, the thought process behind it is, we've got blanket grey skies, and there just isn't anything capturing the imagination. So I'm going in close, I'm going romantic, making these romantic shots, and by that I mean just sort of warm and nostalgic images. They're not technically perfect, but they just have this brilliance about them, and that's why I love this lens. It's not perfect, but it's fantastic. I think it's absolutely great. In fact, it's perfect not being perfect, if that makes sense, but that's how I think of this lens. It's perfect not being perfect. So I've taken some images already. I think I've got some good images based on the conditions, and I don't think I would have actually got as good images without using this lens. So it's definitely a good tool. And I say, I got this for £1 on eBay, and you can probably get it for like £9 on Amazon and eBay. If you're interested in doing black and white work, making it a little bit artistic, definitely recommend it. I will leave a link to the Amazon purchase in the description below. Okay, let's carry on and get some more shots. Okay, so let me talk a little bit more about this Holga lens and why I'm using it. So, as I said, the lens itself, very cheap, plastic, it's not made for any sort of excellence. It hasn't really got a focus. You can see on the side there's 1, 2, 3 options for focus, and I don't think they do a lot really. Now I've got on landscape, because I want to try and get as much as possible in focus. Saying that, I've had my ISO at 4000, and 3000 and 2000, and I've got my aperture at 3.5. And that's because it's a pinhole lens, it lets hardly any light through. And with the conditions being so grey, I'm basically using what I can to allow as much light in as possible to get an image out. Now, what I'm looking for with this lens is changes in shapes and patterns, and also stark contrast. The waves are providing a very good contrast between the rocks and the sand, and that's because it's a lot of sea foam. It's really white, bright white, against the darkness of the image itself, and then the detail in what I'm shooting around it. So I think it's making really good contrast in the shots. And as I say, there is some amazing rock formations around here, all the grooves and cracks where just time has taken a toll on these rocks, and it's just left some amazing shapes. And I'm taking those shapes, and I'm going to make that weird thing that's got 3 imaging, Tipwich or something. I haven't got a clue how that's pronounced. I only learned how it was spelled last time I did it, and I'd never seen that word before in my life. But basically, 3 images together, one scene, Tipwich or something. Somebody comment below and tell me how to pronounce it, please, because I haven't got a clue. So yes, anyway, I'm taking the rock formations, and there's just so much to shoot. And I think I'm in a sort of tourist mode when I'm just taking shots of every single pattern, because it's just so awesome, the shapes and everything here. And again, thank you to Stephen McNally for inspiring me with this video. His black and white work is absolutely amazing. Go and check it out. It's almost all the way in now, and I don't want to get trapped on this bay. I've been keeping an eye on my escape route to make sure I've got plenty of time, but I think it's now about time to go. Now, one thing I did want to talk about before I leave was seascape photography in general. It seems there's a kind of stigma attached with seascape photography, that it's easy photography, that you go out, you shoot a sunrise, you know, you've got your subject, you point, you do a long exposure, job done, easy, very easy to do. I've heard people say, cut your teeth on seascapes and then move on to something else. I've seen it time and time again. And the thing I keep thinking about is people like Joe Cornish. He's possibly the most famous landscape photographer in the UK and a worldwide famous landscape photographer. And he's got so many books on seascapes. So I'm wondering, is he still a beginner? Is he still cutting his teeth? For me, seascapes is not easy. It's as easy as you want it to be. You can go to the beach, you can set up your tripod and you can shoot straight into the sun at a sunrise and walk away. But as I've hopefully demonstrated today, there is so much more to seascape photography. There's shapes, there's contrast, there's walking backwards and walking forwards, following and chasing the tide. The scene itself is forever changing. One minute you've got a rock in front of you and the next minute it's just sea, and that rock has gone till the next tide and you have to find another composition. And again, it's all about composition. I've been to so many places on the northeast coast and I've shot the obvious. I've shot the lighthouses, the castles, but then it's also just walking along a bay with nothing fantastic in it and finding that composition. That's something that works and makes a fantastic image. And that's seascape photography for me. It's as easy as you want it to be. It is great for beginners to go out and shoot those iconic locations with the sea around them, but it's also perfect for capturing the right conditions, making use of the light, different exposures, different shutter speed length, different shutter speeds. There's just so much you can work with. For me, I prefer seascape photography, and I don't know whether it's because I spent the first part of my life literally a stone throw away from the sea and a pier, and I could look out my bedroom window and I could see that. I feel I've got a connection with the sea, and I love that it's forever changing. And if I go somewhere like Derwent Water, for instance, that I went to recently, it's fixed. The tide in the water doesn't change that much. It does come in and out with the seasons, especially around the Centennial Rock, and you want to get, you know, the water around it. You can't always get that. But the water in the water in seascapes is forever changing so quickly, and you have to adapt so quickly and react so quickly that for me it's just perfect. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I don't think seascape photography is for beginners. I'm interested in hearing your opinions, whether you agree with me or whether you don't agree with me. Put them below. What do you think about seascape photography? I mean, I do a lot of it. So I'm guessing if you don't like seascape photography, this channel probably isn't for you. And if you do like seascape photography, press that subscribe button below. It doesn't cost nothing, you just press it, and then says you subscribe, and you'll be notified, especially if you press that bell icon, when I do my next video. And as I say, I do a lot of seascapes, because I'm drawn to the sea. I believe there's a chapter in Moby Dick where it mentions how men are naturally drawn to the sea. And I think it is instinctual. That's just me. It's where I like to be. I feel at home with the sea. I'm not a merman, randomly enough. But anyway, so another thing about the Holga lens is that it's fixed focal length, and I think it's around about 35mm. And you know, I always work with telephoto lenses, so it's sometimes difficult, and you want to be kind of wider than what you are, and you can't get that shot, and it's quite difficult working in. And using something like this is a great challenge, and it does, and even though it's a cheap lens, it can expand your ability in photography to get the shot when you're limited in what you can do. And sometimes what you want to capture, you can't capture, and you have to adapt, and you have to make good with what you've got, which I think is why starting out with not the best gear is the best way to do. Work your way up when you need it, grow out of your kit, don't grow into it, because you might find that you've got the best kit and you're not quite at the level and you don't understand why, and it might be the reason you give up photography. Work your way up. That's the only advice I can give. It might not be the best advice, it might not be great advice, but that's my advice. Work your way up in photography. When you outgrow your kit, then buy the expensive gear. But there's nothing wrong with getting out with even a cheap Holga film camera. I mean, if you've got the time and the patience to develop, amazing. I haven't. I'm so tempted. But for now, it's a cheap Holga lens for me. And stick this on your D3300, your D3100, your 5100. Brilliant. Cheap. There's no excuse. Get one and experiment with it. Okay. So I now need to go and get my C code. If you are in the Cresswell area, look for the tractor and speak to him. His name's Derek, and as I say, 3 big bags of C code for a £5 if you've got an open fire or a stove, multi-stove thing like I have. Brilliant. Burns really hot, lasts a long time, great. And again, it's nostalgia. I don't know how many people's parents had coal when they were young, but it's great. So anyway, I'm signing off now. I hope this has been an interesting video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like, leave a comment below, and please, if you haven't already, consider subscribing. It's amazing seeing people subscribe, and it really is a great driver to keep you going. I know it's not the most important thing. I enjoy when anyone watches my videos, but it is good to know more and more people are seeing my videos and that my reach is expanding. So thank you very much for everyone who's left positive comments in my videos. It really does drive me forward to produce more videos. But anyway, thank you again, and on that note, see you next time. I couldn't resist one last shot.
Let the beating of your heart lead into mine.